Hey everybody, today we're going to go through a partial sample game of The Vote. Now on average, a game of The Vote is going to last 25 to 30 turns. In the playbook, we have a 13-turn partial sample game, and today we're going to go over 9 of those turns. So I'm not going to go into the minutia of why each player makes the decisions that they make in the sample game. That's all in the playbook, and it's like 6.5 pages, and if I was to read that to you now, this video would be an hour long. Third of the deck is going to begin the game in the discard pile. We're not sure exactly what cards are in there, other than Supreme Courts is always in there. And the rest is shuffled to form the draw deck. The top 12 cards are shuffled separately. These are the prelude cards, and they're basically going to give each player kind of a stable hand to begin with. So we're dealing out the cards, and we're dealing out until each player has at least 4 cards, so 4 blue and 4 red. This could result in a split, like a 5-4, 6-4 split, but in this case we have a 4-4 split. Each player is going to get political will, that's the currency of the game, equal to the highest valued card they have in the display. In this case, Supremacy is getting 5 PW to start and Equality 3. Supremacy decides which of them goes first, and decides that Equality will go first, because with only 3 PW, Equality essentially is only going to be able to play 1 card. Equality starts by playing Ain't I a Woman to target the Midwest region for a radicalized action. This is going to flip blue apathy markers to their Equality side. Supremacy is going to earn 2 PW because of the type of action that Equality took. Equality is going to take Ain't I a Woman into their reserve. This is a sort of semi-permanent hand that you build over the course of the game. You're going to be using these cards again and again to take special actions, to react to things, and for their passive abilities, which we'll get into later. So now it's Supremacy's turn. And they're going to start with First Blast of the Trumpet, which they're going to use in the West. Equality could block this with Ain't I a Woman, but they're not going to. Supremacy is going to take that card into their reserve. They're next going to take Upper South into their reserve. This particular action Supremacy is taking is a suppression action, and it basically is allowing them to put this card in their reserve to suppress votes and or public opinion actions later. Supremacy now is going to play First Blast of the Trumpet from their reserve to take a Persuade action. This is going to change apathy markers, change blue to red or red to blue. In this case, changing the blue to red in the Deep South. At the end of the turn, we have a refresh ability. That's this little dot here, and that is going to flip First Blast of the Trumpet face up again. Coming to turn 2, now we're only going to draw cards if a player has fewer cards than their org capacity, which is 2 for each player at the beginning of the game. Since each player has at least 2 cards, we're not drawing any cards this turn. Equality gets to decide who goes first, and they decide to go first. They're playing Seneca Falls from the display to target the Middle Atlantic. Supremacy does not block. Equality decides to use the rest of their PW to discard Midwest from the display. This is because they're trying to get their organization card to come up so that they can take an organization action. Speaking of which, Supremacy now plays their organization card. That's going to increase their org to 3. It's going to refresh any cards that are face down in their reserve. And it's going to allow them to score. Supremacy is going to score a point for each region in which red markers predominate. So they're going to score 5 VP right now. That's pretty great. Turn 3, we draw the cards. Equality decides Supremacy goes first. Supremacy is going to play Intimidation and Violence from the display. In order to take this suppression action, they have to discard a public opinion card from their reserve. So they're removing First Blast of the Trumpet from the game to place Intimidation and Violence, which enters face down. This is important because the passive ability for that card is to score, so they're going to want to get that card flipped back face up as soon as possible. Equality's turn. They play Ain't I a Woman from their reserve, targeting the Midwest. Equality now plays Vindication of the Rights of Women from the display, again targeting the Midwest, flipping those 2 blue markers they just placed to their Equality side. So we now do the passive abilities. Scoring abilities happen first, but since it's not face up, Intimidation and Violence doesn't score. Now we have the refresh abilities, and cards are flipped back face up. Turn 4. Supremacy decides to go first. They play Patriarchy from the display, targeting the Middle Atlantic. Equality flips Seneca Falls to block it. I may have forgotten to actually flip the card in this case. Just pretend that I flipped it. There you go. So because it's blocked, nothing happens in that region. Supremacy does take that card into their reserve. Supremacy decides to expend the remaining PW to pass a federal law. Because they have control of Congress, they can do this and basically cash in PW for 1, 2, or 3 victory points. In this case, 1. Equality plays their organization card, which refreshes the Seneca Falls card I forgot to flip over. They don't score anything because they're only going to score for the laws they have placed. They haven't placed any laws yet. The suppression card earns Supremacy another victory point. Turn 5. Supremacy lets Equality go first. Equality starts by playing the West. This is to try to pass a law. They can't actually pass a law there. They don't have enough votes. They're really just doing this in order to get the West into their reserve, because that'll allow them to take certain bonus actions that amplify their public opinion and law actions. Supremacy, for its turn, just expends its PW to pass a federal law for 2 VP. And then they're going to earn another VP for their suppression card. Coming to turn 6, both players have an org of 3. Both players have 3 cards in display, so no cards are being drawn this turn. Supremacy decides to go first. And for their turn, they're simply going to discard both literacy tests and gerrymandering from the display. They're doing this basically to speed up the game. When the deck runs out of cards, they're going to score again like they did for playing their org. This also can get their org eventually back into their hand so they then can play it again and score again and increase their org and place more cards that score them more points. So they're just trying to speed things up a bit. Equality goes after the Middle Atlantic with Ain't I a Woman, and then flip the West over to take a bonus action. So this allows them to repeat that public opinion action at no additional cost in the specific region. Supremacy has Patriarchy, which can block one of these, and they're going to use it to block the Middle Atlantic. Supremacy markers in the West are flipped to the red Apathy side. Equality ends their turn by discarding Alice Paul from the display. Supremacy scores a victory point, and cards are refreshed. Okay, coming into turn 7, we're drawing some cards, and we actually are drawing out the rest of the deck. That means at the end of this turn, there will be a reshuffle, and there will be stuff that happens when we reshuffle. Supremacy decides that Equality will go first. Equality starts by targeting the Midwest. Supremacy does not block. Now this gives Equality 6 of the 8 spaces in the Midwest, so they could pass a law there if they had enough BW. They don't. They do have enough to take a Persuade action targeting the West. Supremacy doesn't want this to happen, and they flip Patriarchy to block it. Supremacy starts their turn by playing a Woman's Profession from the display, targeting the West. Equality blocks it with Seneca Falls. Supremacy now plays Woman in the Republic, again targeting the West, and this time it goes through. They're going to end their turn by discarding Upper South from their reserve, removing it from the game. This Upper South isn't a huge concern right now, and the Midwest is. So deck's been exhausted. Both players are going to score as they would when playing an organization card. Again, only Supremacy is scoring here. Equality haven't passed any laws yet. Both players are going to refresh all the cards in the reserve. All the discards are shuffled to form a new deck. This will include the cards that weren't in the deck the first time around. Supremacy is going to score a victory point for the suppression card. Now we're going into turn 8. We get 1 card draw for Equality. Equality gives Supremacy the first turn, and Supremacy plays Midwest to take it into the reserve face up, which is, again, why they removed the Upper South from the previous turn. They then use their last PW to pass a federal law for an extra victory point. Equality opens with a Persuade action, targeting the Middle Atlantic, and they again flip the West as a bonus action. Supremacy is expecting Equality to try to pass direct election, which is going to flip their Midwest card, and they want to keep a card with a refresh ability in play, so they're not going to use their Patriarchy to block in this case. As expected, Equality is playing direct election, targeting the Midwest. They need 5 votes in order to pass. They have 6, but if Supremacy can suppress, they must do so, and they have 2 cards that can suppress votes, so they can flip those to cancel 2 votes. The law doesn't pass. Because that suppression card is face down, Supremacy doesn't score this turn. Equality uses Seneca Falls to refresh Ain't I a Woman. Supremacy uses their refresh to flip Midwest. Turn 9, we're drawing cards, and this any law card is not what Supremacy was hoping for. They really won't be able to stop Equality from passing a law with that card in the Midwest. Supremacy decides to go first, and they spend all their PW to discard the 3 region cards from the display. Basically what they're trying to do here is accelerate the game, fishing for their organization card, because they're going to need it. Equality starts with the Persuade action in the West. This isn't one that Supremacy can let go by, so they use Patriarchy to block it, even though they know this is going to leave them defenseless for several turns, because they're not going to have any way to flip these cards back until their organization card comes up. Now Equality plays anti-law from the display, targeting the Midwest, and they choose municipal elections. Now Supremacy has to flip Midwest to try to suppress votes, but Equality still has enough votes to pass the law, and they score their first victory point. So that should give you some sense of the interplay between the 2 player roles and the function of the reserve and the bonus abilities within the Vote, Suffrage, and Suppression in America. This is a game that will be available to order on November 3rd. Take care, everybody.